Howard. And I am delighted to introduce my wife, Brenda, and tell you a quick story. You know, all of us had trouble making it through the early months of the coronavirus before we could get outside. And we were sitting there and looking at four walls. And is both a math teacher and an artist. So she would sit in front of the TV watching all the world's greatest experts contradict each other. And she'd take the thing and she would squiggle lines on it. And then she would squiggle the lines and squiggle, and then she would color them in. And then she would send them out to our friends. And this is what these things look like. She would start with this. That's all it would be. Okay. And then at the end of the day, came out looking like that. And then the next day, there was all of these other figures. And each of the days that she would do this, she would send them out one page, one day at a time, and have comments from people. And everybody would go on Facebook would give a comment, including Larry Bell, who did some things. And then sometimes it was a little more difficult for her to do it. And I said,
Can somebody tell Jeff we can't hear him?
it was Donald Trump. She was listening to it. She said this was, she had just had a fight with me. So that's what that looks like. It was a very bad day. So as you can see, she ended up putting them all in the book of about 38 of them days, and she's got it on Amazon. So it's a pretty cool thing that she did. So if you have trouble this winter, she did some of them with her feet. She would put the pen on her toes and scribble it that way and do it. So she's got squiggling through COVID-19, how this artist kept from going nuts during the pandemic. So actually, now we can move on past President Joe. It's all up to you.
My personal physician is here this evening, and so I have to make sure that this is sanitized. Good evening. Welcome to the presentation of opera diva Susan B. Anthony. Tonight we are her audience. When you're so moved, you might shout out, "Brava!" Yes, a standing ovation at the end of her remarks is also quite appropriate. For my introduction, I have elected to talk about the global audience response to the Pride of Kalamazoo. After a performance of Wagner's Lohengrin in Santiago, Chile, Diva Anthony heard on the dressing room door. "Yes," she said. And then we heard, "Señora or Señorita Anthony, yo soy el presidente de Chile, Ricardo Largos Escobar." Now, you all understood me, I assume. "Oh, Miss Anthony, I am the president of Chile, Ricardo Largos Escobar," was at the door. What followed once the president was in her dressing room after the production, he complimented her on her artistry and offered an invitation to the presidential palace for dinner. Opera Washington mounted Beethoven's Fidelio in the DAR Constitution Hall. Our diva has a majestic, dramatic soprano voice which filled this cavernous venue. The likes of Madeleine Albright and Ruth Bader Ginsburg turned out for the production. At the gala dinner, these two notables stood up as the diva walked into the ballroom of the Organization of American States building. Secretary Albright would sit next to Susan during the dinner. And before Susan took her seat, she came over to my table and said, "Joe, what should I say to the secretary?" I whispered, "She came to hear you. Let her lead the conversation. In fact, you both are those who have international experience." Well, you could see you love Jory and you know her. Okay. But see, there was conversation. Intrepid, our diva, premiered in the first large-scale opera integrating electronic and acoustic elements at the Paris Opéra Bastille. The production, titled K, that is, for Kafka, it's loosely based on Kafka's The Trial. Susan played 3 roles: a cleaning woman, the wife of the bailiff, and then observer at the trial as the theater audience's surrogate. At the Brasserie Beaufinger off the Place de la Bastille later, she, bedecked with flowers and accompanied by an entourage, entered the dining room to the applause and a standing ovation from the post-opera diners. Note also, the epitome of innocence, purity, and values has characterized the production of Susan in Lohengrin. But one of her last productions that we were so pleased to see in Karlsruhe, she took the opposite. She was Ortrude, the conniving she-devil witch in Lohengrin. The night prior to the premiere at Karlsruhe, I emailed her words of encouragement, which tonight will give her as I ask her to come to the microphone. And this is what I said, and this will invite her to assume the role. Here. "You're ravishing and foreboding. Give 'em hell." And it was 3 minutes.
I'm going to try without the microphone and use my opera voice, but okay. Barry, is this you?
There you go.
All right. Is this? I'm not good at microphones for obvious reasons because I never use them, but we'll do my best here, and I'll just pretend I'm a pop star instead of an opera star. Anyways, thank you for that introduction, and also thank you for the invitation to be here tonight. I'm honored, and yes, actually, I'm in for a little bit of fun. Don't expect to be edified by anything I'm going to say tonight. I've been informed that this group has to do with various topics to further your education. Well, this isn't going to be one of them. I'll just tell you little opera stories, and I'll let you make your own judgments. And I would encourage you, if you want a little perambulation before I get started, of course, I have dozens of these, but I've chose these photos because some of them really depict what you have to go through as an opera star to get something on the stage and to get paid. They're very unusual productions, usually by some sort of cutting edge new regisseur, which we always hated at the moment. In contrast, I have put up 2 or 3 others where you see traditional costumes, which is what you expect to be put into and what the audience expects to see. But then you contrast them with the other, and this is like the same opera, just a different scene. And believe me, some of them were really worth a second look. So yeah, if you want to have a look, you can, because I will definitely explain some of these. I mean, here I'm being threatened with a knife. And here we won't say what I'm being, but that's the tenor. You can guess. You can guess. Yes. This actually is a Salome, and if you can believe it, that's Salome. I am wearing little rubber funnels in a very specific place, but I'll tell you about that later. And that's Johannahan, who you'd never guess. But as I say, this was a very forward-thinking, yes, director who actually was more involved with art and painting than he was with directing. So it was rather disastrous to work with him until we made him fall down on his own set to convince him that this was not safe. So yes, anyways, these are some of the stories, but I thought I would start today just by saying, but I was titling my evening, The Reluctant Opera Singer, because some of you know this, but most of you don't. It was never my ambition to become an opera singer. In fact, I always disliked opera, and anytime I heard it, it was usually with some wobbly voice soprano, and I thought, I never ever want to sound like that. So it was never my intention to study it, and much less to sing it, and much less to make any money at it. But I had a series of people in my life, for which I am now grateful, who always pushed. Usually it was threatening. No physical violence, but close. And yeah, I was threatened at least several times to be excommunicated from my voice teacher studio. Would I not audition for this, that, or the other thing? But I was never good at that. And like I say, since this was never my ambition, I never went after anything. So my original major at Western was elementary, like an education degree, because that's what my mom did. And I thought that'd be just perfect to do. Everybody brings you apples and the students all love you and you don't have to work very hard. But told you I was a little naive. But then my voice teacher, Marcella Faustman, who, if anybody knows her, she was quite the salty dog, and told me after one semester that she thought I should change to performance. Well, I'm very good at taking orders. And I went, oh, okay, fine, without a second thought as to how was I ever going to make money out of a performance degree, and what was it anyways? But she promised me more voice lessons if I did it. So I changed, and I graduated with a performance degree, which basically is kind of useless. But in any case, I went on to get a master's only because she said, I can't really teach you anymore and you need somebody more. And I'm like, oh, okay. She had two choices for me. Since she went to Bloomington, Indiana herself, she said she could get me in there, or she knew someone at U of M who would also be a good voice teacher, good choice for me. And my choice was made because she said, well, kiddo, I just have to tell you though, in Bloomington, it's cutthroat. You better have elbows. And I went, I'll go to U of M, thank you. So following my true to nature, avoid conflict at any cost and don't go for competition, I went to U of M. I signed up with Ava Lakova, who talked me into going into a master's program because she said I'd get more voice lessons. So I was paying her at that point. And she said, well, sign up for the master's program. I'll take you and then you don't have to pay for this. I went, oh, okay, fine. As usual, doing what people told me. So this was very good. I spent a very nice 2 years there. I loved my leader class. I didn't really like the opera, but I kept going. I did 2 competitions in my whole life. One was the Met competition, and I only did that because my voice teacher threatened me and said, if you don't do this competition, you're not a serious singer and I have to cut you from my studio. So of course I was terrified. I did the competition, even though on the day of the competition, I was very ill. I couldn't hear anything. I had a terrible cold. But I was so afraid not to do it that I did it anyways. And I thought, okay, I'll just do the first round. I'll lose, and then she'll leave me alone. Well, I won the whole thing. So yes, and calling her that night to tell her that I won the whole thing. Oh yes, I've heard. But what happened to my tenor and my other soprano? How come they didn't win? Finally, my accompanist said, hang up the phone. So I did. And I went on to win the regionals after that and the Detroit Opera Association Award. So that was competition number 1 that I was threatened into. But as I say, very reluctant here. The second one, and that allowed me to continue voice lessons with her. So the second one comes along. She tells me after I graduated, but was still taking voice lessons because I liked the voice lessons. I just didn't really want to do anything with them. And she said, I think you should go and audition for Mark Belfort. He runs the Zurich Opera Studio. And he won't take you, but I want you to go sing for him because maybe he can tell you what you should be doing. So of course I have to go. And I'm like, Oh no, it was a snowstorm. My accompanist, Charles, and I got together the 5 arias because I was terrified that once again she was going to kick me out of the studio. We took a train from Ann Arbor to Chicago in a snowstorm, arrived an hour late. The only reason Mark Belfort was still there was my dear mother. She kept him talking for an hour. She was there coincidentally visiting my sister, and she kept him in the room. We arrived. He, of course, was very impatient and ready to go. And he says, okay, what have you got? No warm up, no nothing. And we just walked 4 blocks from the train station to the Lyric Opera in a snowstorm. So Charles and I get up on the stage. We sing through the 5 arias, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think, okay, I'm done. I can go home. No, he says, well, do you have Come Scoglio from Così fan tutte? Now, I must tell you, that is my least favorite opera in the world. It's my least favorite aria in the world. I actually hate it and therefore did not offer it. Well, this is what he wanted to hear. What do I say? I said, well, actually, no, I don't have it with me. Well, can you get the music? In a snowstorm with me and Charles, my mother walked around 3 blocks to the music store, bought the score, came back. He gave us 5 minutes to look at it. Charles has never seen this before, yes? I have seen it but hate it. So we go down to the cafeteria where nobody is. Charles is finger playing it on the counter, going, oh, okay. And I'm going, oh, Charles, now this part goes like this, and this is the tempo for here, and then we have to do this. Oh, okay. Let me tell you at this point that Charles is a man of color. So we go up. We start the aria. First half, which is relatively slow, it's an ABA, goes okay. The second half, which goes much, much faster, Charles misread the time signature on it and started with da 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 da. I sang like this for 2 measures with my other hand going. Charles' eyes get as big as saucers, and finally he quit. He gives up. He gives up in the middle of the second half of the aria. He just stops playing. He puts his hands in his lap and goes. I, of course, have left on the stage alone. I finished the aria a cappella to the end, thinking, this has got to be it now. He's going to say, please leave. I sit down. He comes to talk to me. He stands in front of me and he says, okay, I have one more place in the studio and I'd like to give it to you. What do I say? What? You're not supposed to say that. You're supposed to tell me to go home. You're not supposed to take me. And he says, well, who told you that? I said, well, my voice teacher said you would never take me. And he goes, I think you need a new voice teacher. So I literally had 1 minute to decide the course of my life with my mother looking over Mr. Belfort's shoulder at me. And it's like, well, you have 2 music degrees and you're working at an engineering firm. What do you want to do? Do you want to try this for a year and then say, okay, I can do something else now? Or do you want to waste the degrees and all the money and just say no? So I said yes. Well, that summer I did nothing. I got no information from the studio. And this is the good part of the story, is how I actually got there. Once again, I, stupid, naive, not totally interested here. I knew when the studio started, the date. So I managed to arrange a open-ended Pan Am ticket to Zurich, actually to Frankfurt, because I didn't know how to fly into Zurich. So it took me to Frankfurt. I arrived in Frankfurt with 2 large suitcases, 2 cardboard boxes, and that's it. I had to get from Frankfurt to Zurich. Well, I stopped. I did. I had my little phrase book that said, see it and say it in German. Let me tell you that the 2 languages I studied at Western were French and Italian. Did I study German? No. Why? I hated it. It was ugly. Where do I land? Zurich. Great. So I would say, wo ist der Zug nach Zürich? Of course, as soon as you say anything like that, they assume that you're going to understand what they tell you. Of course, I didn't. Not a single word. We had to switch to English every time. I don't know how I found the train to Zurich, but I did. I arrived at 10 o'clock at night. It's dark. I find a taxi cab. I've changed money in the Zurich Bahnhof, the train station. Thinking there's only one kind of francs. So I asked for francs. They gave me francs. I got in the taxi. Could I make myself understood where I wanted to go? No. I kept saying, theater, theater, theater. He took me to 2 theaters, both Schauspiel, not opera. And I'm like, no, that's not it. That's not it. Finally, I came up with the word Oper. Drives me a further 10 minutes. We're at the steps to go up to the actual opera house in Zurich. I'm looking at the meter. It says 11 francs. I pull out 20 francs. I give it to him. He's like, no, 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 not enough. I said, but the meter says 11. This is 20. No, wrong, wrong. Yes, right. I had no idea there was two kinds of francs. I had gotten French francs. So after a further argument and much frustration on his part, he took the 20, he dumped all of the luggage and me on the front steps of the opera and drove off. So I, of course, schlepped my little self and my sleeping bag, by the way, into the porter of the opera, a very nice red-haired lady who, thank goodness, spoke English. And I said, well, my name is Susan Anthony, and I'm due to start the studio tomorrow. Oh, well, what are you doing here? I said, but this is the opera house, isn't it? Well, yes, but don't you have a place to stay? I said, no. Does Belfort know you're here? No. Why didn't you call him? I didn't want to bother him, and I don't have his phone number. And I said, can't I just stay here? I have my sleeping bag. What? This is not a hotel. This is the Zurich Opera House. You can't stay here. I said, you don't have a closet? I don't care. You can't do that. We have to fix. Well, she called Mr. Belfort, who was at a party, who was very annoyed to be interrupted in such a way by some stupid little blonde dum-dum from Michigan. And it's like, well, why didn't you call me? I said, you never gave me any phone numbers. What? He managed to arrange that somebody from the American Women's Club, who are a very nice group of ladies and always helped us, she came and got me. I met my first friend that night because it was another soprano in the house. They had just gotten a rehearsal finished. She comes out. She goes, I hear you're staying with Susan Soper. I'm going, yes. Who are you? Oh, well, I was in the studio last year and I sang with her, or I stayed with her. So Susan took us both to her house. Paula Keller, who is my friend to this day. Between the two of them, the next 3 days, they found me my first little tiny apartment in Zurich. And so started my career as an opera singer, just like that. And of course, we had lots of bumps along the way. The opera studio, of course, I ran out of money halfway through because I thought I could live on 5 francs a day. Well, that'll buy you a sausage, maybe. So I lost 20 pounds the first month I was there. None of my clothes fit. And my audition outfit, when it finally came time to audition for the agents, fell off. So it was either buy a new one, which I couldn't afford, or use a lot of safety pins, which is what we did. Belfort nixed my lucky dress that my voice teacher insisted that I pack because it was no, that's not very European. You can't. And of course, it was black and had lace on it. No, we can't do that. Americans wear sequins. Europeans don't. So yes, I had a black suit, and that, like I said, was full of safety pins. Anyways, it took me a year, but I was one of the few people I got a job. So what do? I'm supposed to stay over there 1 year in the Zurich Opera Studio and go home. Well, I have a job, so now what do? I guess I better take it. So my first job in Coburg, very small town in Germany, very jewel-like, beautiful theater, was never bombed in the war. I mean, it's a lovely area. My first opera was Don Carlos, rather large for somebody who's only 26. But I, being the good doobie that I am, I learned the whole opera over the summer before I started my job, thinking this is what you do. This is what we would do here. I mean, we have to learn our own music. I got there. I had the whole opera learned. What did my colleagues say? What are you trying to do? Show us up? Why do you have this learned already? I said, but aren't you supposed to come with it learned? No, they teach it to you. Nobody learns our stuff here. Oh, so that's how this works. My second lesson was, of course, in the language. Once again, German. Luckily, our intendant spoke English, but did it in such a way where after I missed 2 stage directions and just stood there because I had no idea what he was saying, and my 2 American colleagues on either side are going, and I'm going, what? Oh, I see that our new colleague, Frau Anthony, does not yet speak the language. I guess we will have to conduct all further rehearsals in English for her benefit. Of course, this is my first day on the job. I sink into the floor. I immediately get a dictionary and start learning. So yes, I managed to learn German probably within 2 months, just to be able to understand what I was supposed to do. And now it's my second language, and I learned to love it. As I learned to love my job, which I think after the second or third engagement that I managed to get, because I started to climb after that, I finally stopped going, okay, I'll just take this job one more time and then I'll go home. to, you know what? I think this is your job and you should just do it. So as I said, I really learned to love it after that. I learned to appreciate it. I learned to appreciate the language. And I stopped telling myself that I only had to do this one more time and I could stop. So I never did stop. And I was very lucky in that I have had almost a 30-year performance career. And I've sung with some of the best conductors. Zubin Mehta is my favorite. I sang with Giuseppe Sinopoli. There's a picture of our Ariadne of Naxos up on the board. Christian Thielemann. I had a lot of very good, very helpful people. And then, of course, you have the unhelpful people. You have the tenor who, in your first engagement, and you're singing your first La Boheme, your very favorite opera, which you never thought you'd get to sing, and you get to sing it. Well, number one, it's in German. It doesn't sound anything like the recording. Number two, we have a German conductor who doesn't know the meaning of the word phrasing. So you take a little time. Mach schnell, das ist nicht so lang. So of course, my entire experience with La Boheme was like, oh no, it's ruined. And then I had a wonderful tenor whose favorite trick was my dying aria, always on the sofa, because you know Mimi is consumptive. I can't move, yes. I have to lay on the sofa and sing this aria. He would, every night, move his chair right in front of me, so I couldn't see the conductor at all. And of course, what can I do? If I sit up, I'm still alive. That doesn't work. I can't say anything to him because I'm singing. So of course, I'm doing my little Dandelieta aria and looking daggers at the tenor. Doesn't come off well as a love relationship, but luckily nobody could see that either because I was blocked from the audience. Yes, that's my unfavorite tenor story. I have a much better one with one of the tenors up here who was also, very, very helpful, nicest guy, and helped me out of a jam in this particular production. This actually is Wozzeck. Does anybody know Wozzeck from Alban Berg? Oh, okay. Anyways, very famous story, but that's me as Marie. This was a Calixto Bieto production, who is also extremely forward-thinking, usually violent, usually bloody. So yeah, as you can see here, I'm getting my throat cut. Here, as I say, we don't know what the tenor is doing to me. But at one point in the Inszenierung, and he likes men in diapers, he likes nudity. He told me that he had this scene, because I shared this with another soprano, who was an exhibitionist, much to my disgust. She had no trouble taking off all of her clothes and going, hi, before getting dressed. He told me I was going to have to do that. I took a look at her doing it. I thought, can I do this? Little person from Michigan, Virgo, don't do things like this. What do I say? If I say no, I don't get the job. If I say yes, I'm like, So I said, well, yes, I think I can do that. Thinking, okay, good. It's Madrid, Spain. Nobody knows me. No one's going to go home and tell my mom. So I said I would. Well, we get to the performance night and I'm like, I can't do this. I can't do this. And of course, the scene is with this giant tenor. His name is John Villers, by the way. And I had already done Ariadne auf Naxos with him in La Scala and found him to be quite amenable, very nice, very large, very big voice, and gay. So he comes up with a wonderful solution because I am on a catwalk. We are approximately 10 feet above the audience and the orchestra. And what I have to do is I have to get out of this red jumpsuit and I have to pull on a sequined evening dress. Underneath the jumpsuit, of course, I have nothing because I have to pull a dress on. And this is what I'm supposed to do facing the audience. Well, I just couldn't do it. So John says, all right, I'll help you. What you're going to do is, and of course, I have the banda up there too. Wozzeck has a little group of 4 people, and of course, they're all Spanish. And, you know, they never get to see boobs, at least not on stage. So they're all waiting for this moment, playing lots of wrong notes, going, okay, is she doing it yet? What's happening? What's happening? Anyways, John goes, you just turn around and I will put my arms around you. He goes, I don't care about your boobs. I'm gay. Get the dress down, get the jumpsuit off, pull it back up again and turn around. And I thought, okay, I do this. I turn around, the dress is on, we go on with the scene. I'm thinking, Oh, thank God. Of course, the Bonda was horrifically disappointed because they got to see almost nothing. Not to mention, had they wiggled any more, they would have fallen off the catwalk. That would have been a disaster. And I had the pleasure of, after the performance was over, that the director came to me and went, now I don't know about that, but I liked what you did with that scene. I think I will change it. Ha! I win. And there are nice tenors in the world who do not sing in your ear and stand in front of you and pull their chair in front of your face. But yes, he's one of my favorite colleagues. But yes, I mean, stories do tell. He had a boyfriend with him. So when we weren't on stage in La Scala with the Ariadne, we were in their apartment and John was painting his toenails glitter green and Drew was feeding him oysters and rings. I mean, that was like the best part for him. He could be Apollo, right? The god. He wore every piece of jewelry he owned until I think finally Sinopoli said, all right, it's a little over the top. Take it off. I think the green toenail polish did it for him, but yeah, that was enough. I mean, the Italians are like, yeah. I have another good costume story that goes also Italian. Riccardo Muti, you know who that is, maybe. Anyways, he used to be director of the Scala. Now he is Chicago. Anyways, we were doing the Ring, Wagner's Ring. My first piece of it was Valkyrie. That's where I sang with Domingo. That was actually quite fun, actually. And I managed to make my 10 seconds of fame on 60 Minutes. Nobody saw it. My mother was in the kitchen. My uncle was in the bathroom. I mean, a lot of telephoning call was going on. She's on television. She's on 60 Minutes. She's on 60 Minutes. Like, but. So none of them saw it. My mother tried for 2 years to try to get a copy of the tape. Muti wouldn't release it because it was his documentary. So there was my 10 seconds of fame that just went. Whoosh. How we got that and how I got the shot, we'll talk about it at a later date. But there was no bribery involved, but close. And all the other Valkyries tried everything from giving the camera team red underwear to coffees. They didn't win. I did. Anyways, the second time I sang with Muti was the second piece we did, Rheingold. Well, he did that concertante because the stage director wanted to fill the entire stage with water for his new Inszenierung, his new scene. And of course, they said, no, you can't do this. It'll break it. I mean, you can't, we can't do this. So they had to scrap the entire scene. So there was no scene. So we did it as a concert. Well, I arrived and I'm thinking, oh, well, I play Freya. And this is like the goddess of love, youth. So I had brought a frothy cream-colored dress, puffy sleeves, little roses all over it. I thought, oh, this is perfect. He hated it. He wanted the entire cast to wear black. And I'm like, oh, no, now what do I do? It's like, it would cost me a whole gaja. I have to go out and buy a black evening dress? Oh, no. Well, I was saved by none other than Muti's wife, who, first, I had to go and show everyone the dress. I had to parade it out on stage, and Muti's wife saved me. Well, dear, maybe if she just took off the rosebuds, I really don't think it's that bad. And she is the goddess of youth. He listened. So when you see the cast photos of this, everyone else is in black, and I am in blonde curly hair and this puffy white wedding dress thing. But I got away with it. Thank you. And got engaged for the third piece after that. So I felt that I'd won some battle. But as I say, Frau Muti, who I never did meet, I know that she was my savior because Muti said, my wife likes it. So it can stay. So we have that. The rest of these pictures up here, as I say, I've got some contrasts because I wanted you all to see how and what we have to go through and still be able to sing. And some of it's rather strenuous. If you look here, as I say, I'm having to sing here while my throat is being cut. Here I'm having to sing where I'm probably being raped. Here, this is the Salome from Achim Frey, the painter. All of us were in prison uniforms. My mother, Herodias, she had to wear balloons on her chest. I was supposed to wear funnels. Well, I thought this was horrible. And so every night they would put the funnels on my costume. They would leave and I would take a scissors and cut them. And of course, every night Joachim goes, you cut the funnels off again. And I went, yup. I got him to accept the fact that no, I wasn't going to put black circles under my eyes. No, I wasn't going to paint a big mouth all over my face. I said, well, Salome's different than her parents. That's what makes her different. You can't make me look like my parents. That would be wrong. Well, because as I say, he's a painter. He's not a director. So I got away with it. And yes, every night I trimmed the funnels off. You can still see them here, but at least they weren't quite as obnoxious looking as the ones that are actually, pinned on at the beginning of the evening. Yeah, very bad. So here I am. The stage was raked. I mean, this is the worst Salome stage I've ever had to work on. But I ended up liking the production just because it was such a challenge to get through it. The stage was totally raked in 2 directions. So you have to imagine the stage is like this, a V, a wall in the back, a funnel running down to the orchestra pit, and that's it. There's nothing flat anywhere. So you have to and it's made out of yellow oilcloth. Do you know how slippery that is? Yeah. Well, he was having, so we have to sing, the whole opera is basically like this. And here I am crawling up of it, singing. Then he has the bright idea during one scene, the boys, the Jews, take a hose, they spray the thing, and then we're supposed to dance. Well, of course, what happens? Everybody falls down. They slide into the orchestra pit. And we're like, we can't do this. You can't do this for the wet stage. Yes, you can. Well, finally, this is what we said, you try it. Okay. Well, he, of course, fell right on his you-know-what and slid to the orchestra pit. Got up. We didn't have any more water on the stage. And we could all wear shoes with rubber soles so that we would stop falling down. But I mean, what they are thinking. And Strauss, Salome, that's one of the hardest things that you can sing. I mean, at least with a soprano, it's huge. It's loud. It goes on. You don't get a break. There's no intermission in Salome. You sing all the way through it. You get a tiny little break when other people are yelling at each other, but mostly it's just you. And to have to do it in those kind of positions, like I said, it was a challenge every night. And of course, we got booed every night because it looked nothing like Salome. The Berliner Orchestra, they hated it. They loved us. When the singers would come out, we got lots of bravos. But when poor Joachim had to come out for his bow, it was like thunderous boos, thunderous. But as I said, I was the only one who actually ended up liking it. This is in Barcelona, one of my favorite productions. It's called The Todesstadt, The Dead City, by Korngold. Beautiful music. If anybody knows Korngold, he immigrated to the US and started writing film music. And that's in a lot of movies. You can hear it to this day, but this is like his most famous opera. A Willie Decker production, who you won't know, but very beautiful. But then I have to go from looking like this at the beginning, relatively normal, you say, yellow dress, hair, shoes, to looking like this, barefoot, slip dress, bald. And then at the end of the opera, I have to go back to this. So I had 2 dressing cabines on either side of the stage where I would run off. They took everything off. I'd run back on in the slip dress. I'd have to run off again, put everything back on again, and the hair, come back on and finish the opera. But there too, that's a huge painting and I'm laying on it and I have to sing a whole scene. And one of the photos that I sent Jim is even better. I'm on a white cross like this. I am being lifted into the air by a whole bunch of people and I'm singing. Great. So as I say, you get into quite a lot of pickles doing this job. It's not all beautiful. This is the Contessa in Marriage of Figaro. Totally normal, Herman Pry production. All I had to do was stand in the middle of the stage and wring my hands. That was it. I mean, it was the most boring staging I ever did, but I looked good. This, my first Lohengrin with Christian Thielemann in Nuremberg. But I went on to do many more Lohengrins in nearly every theater in Europe, including Santiago de Chile down south. So that was a major role for me. Frauenauschatten was another major role. This is Fidelio, believe it or not, where I have to spend half of the opera as half man and half woman. Now tell me how that works. So you sing the whole opera in profile because this way, I'm the woman. I turned around this way, no hair, pants. Very interesting staging. Very difficult to sing because when you're singing profile, you're singing off stage. But if you turn your head, they see that it's the same person. Once again, a stage director is like, here, but you have to do it. You accepted the job. You had no idea. You can't go, no, I'm not going to. He had me serving lobster dinner to Florestan, who's starving in prison. What? Where am I getting a lobster dinner? What? But that was his idea. You had to do it and you had to sell it. And that's where the true artist comes out, because some of these ideas were just so off the wall. You thought, I cannot find any sense here. And I'm telling you, if the artist can't find it, they can't sell it and the audience is never going to buy it. But if you can find something in there that speaks to you or that you can connect to something that you're feeling, you can do it. Even in something like this. When I got to the end and I had the head, even after I'm looking like a prisoner all night, people were crying because you had to give so much of yourself to get over all the nonsense that the director put you in so that you can still reach the audience, which is the point of art. Anyways, any art is to reach somebody else. It's not just for you, you have to give it away. So I learned over the course of my career to be able to find it and then give it away in the most unusual of situations and, yeah, scenes. Joe's got one up here. I have a bloody arm here, but the rest of this picture, I'm holding an axe and a dead goat. That's how I start the opera. The stage opens, I'm holding an axe and a dead goat. Bloody, of course. And I'm all bloody because I've just sacrificed this. Okay, that's how we start. I'm Clytemnestra and I'm sacrificing this because I killed my husband. So here we go. It's you just have to go, okay, I can sell this, I can do it. They're going to believe it. So far, as I said, I think I managed to do it. This was the most beautiful production. I just have to tell you a little bit about this because this was a favorite. Also, another one where I was the only one who liked it. This was Frau Schotten, like I said, one of my favorite roles, and I've done it many times, almost everywhere. But I'm the Kaiserin, and this was a new production at the Bastille. Have you ever heard of Robert Wilson? Well, he is a lighting guy and an artist, but he also directs. Unusual person. I was warned about doing this production because he'd just done something at Bayreuth before, and like everybody had muscle cramps and people couldn't sing, and it was horrible because his idea of a scene was not to portray the opera, not to tell the story, but to make pictures. So that's what we had to do for 4.5 Strauss hours, is make pictures, which means you move in slow motion, you take a pose, and you have to hold it for minutes. And then you have to sing. So of course, people who have had no dance training, that saved me. Couldn't. You know, their arms would ache. They'd have to put it down. They'd get all tight. They had to have massages. They hated it. I, on the other hand, for my character, found it actually rather beautiful. In fact, came up with moves that saved other people's muscles just by saying, look, if you just do this and no more, your arm doesn't get tired. But if you put it up here, yes, it does. Not bad. And Robert Wilson loved me. So, and I'm like, okay, good, I'm good. But it is very beautiful. What he created, the pictures of it, are really rather spectacular. But that's what they are. They're pictures. There was no emotion anywhere. And it's very difficult to portray emotion when you can't move. And you don't spend a lot of time looking at your partners either because you can't. You're in this frozen sort of state. But you had to do that then with various parts of your hand, any other sort of body part that you could. It was like sign language that went along with the music. And I was lucky enough to be able to figure out some of that and make it work. So it turned out to be a success. I mean, I'm glad. But Robert Wilson, on the other hand, he came to 2 rehearsals and spent most of the time designing windows for Louis Vuitton across the street. Yeah, we didn't see too much of him. We got his little Italian-speaking assistant who was reading the text off of a CD and translating it into Italian. And it's like we'd have to say, but this really means this. So if you have us do this move on this word, you're having us do a big movement on the word it or the. And he's like, oh. So it's like, well, have us move on a different word. But that was also a huge challenge to get through that, not have muscle aches and pains, and have it look beautiful. So I ended up enjoying that very much. They did not bring it back because Robert Wilson was under contract and he was too expensive, and Utgal said he'd never work with him again after that. I mean, I think they sued each other. So that was a one season only, unfortunately, even though it was very expensive to mount. As I say, you're welcome to look at any of these that you like. I think we had a Domingo one, but I took it down. But that's the Washington Opera thing that Joe was talking about. So that was Fidelio there. And that was good. It was a good production. I enjoyed that. That was normal. I had on, a prison uniform, but still, I was supposed to be a boy and not half and half, which was unusual. But I've done some very interesting little things there. But as I say, I learned to enjoy it. I learned to appreciate it. I don't miss it now that I'm not doing it all the time. But since I didn't want to be it in the first place, that sort of did me good. And I enjoy teaching it to others because, as I say, there's a lot going on that nobody out there sees. And if you can kind of make that clear, then people kind of know what they're getting into. Because, it's like, oh gosh, you're an opera singer. Wow, it's really cool. It's like, well, yeah, sometimes, but you can't have any wine, you can't do any mouth breathing, don't try riding your bike, you have to sleep, you have to get 8 hours of sleep. There's some sacrifice involved there. It's not all fun and games, and you only have 2 little tissues here. It's not like your string breaks and you can get a new bow. You ruin it for good. So that was the other. You have to be so careful with some of these things because they have you doing things that are not natural, and you have to figure out how you can physically get through this without hurting yourself. Yeah. So like I say, it's not all ha ha ha, but I enjoyed many years of it, and I'm very grateful for it. And all the people who all along the way, go, go, go. It's like, but I don't want to. I'll never win. Hey, I did, and I liked it. And I thank my mom for everything because she had more talent in her little finger than I'll ever have. So, but that's where I got it. And I think my mentors and my teachers, without them, I wouldn't be here. Good. And I thank you for listening to all this drivel for an hour. But, they're good stories. They're good stories. Everybody has them. Yeah. Good.
I'm sure we have some questions around here somewhere. Okay. Barbara, here, you want the mic? They want to hear them on live.
What is the future of opera?
If we were not in the middle of a COVID pandemic, I would say the future of opera is ongoing. Of course, the United States does not support it in the same way or with the same enthusiasm as Europe does, because in Europe it's a tradition. Everybody goes to opera because it's been there forever. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. It's like I can do this without the microphone. Okay. Yes. Here, I would still say it has a future. We still have Bloomington cranking out, hundreds of voice majors every year. It's like, well, where are they going to go? We have lots of apprenticeship programs. We have lots of learning facilities for them. Unfortunately, we do not have lots of opera houses for them to get jobs at afterwards, but that's this country. And as I say, I didn't sing here until I was pretty much on the way over there. So when I made my debut here, I went right for the big houses. I was in New York, Los Angeles, Washington. Oh, that's another little thing. How many of you know where you were on 9/11? Do you remember? Yeah, well, I was in New York. And that was supposed to be my debut in New York with Flying Dutchman at New York City Opera on that day. Yes, and we'd had a wonderful time rehearsing. I loved it. And I woke up that day at 9 o'clock, looking forward to it. And a friend of mine called on the telephone and said, turn on the television. I'm like, oh, why? Okay. I saw it. So I spent that afternoon up at my stage director's apartment. He had invited anybody who was in the area who could get there. I saw the second tower fall. Nobody could get through. My mother was frantic, but that's my 9/11. And I ended up on the front cover of the New York Times because we were the first theater to open after that. We had to do it on a Sunday afternoon with another performance that night that was already scheduled. But there's a picture there of we're holding the flag and we're all, yep, that was our opening night. We all had to sing the national anthem, and then we had to start the performance. And I have to tell you, I don't remember a single thing about the performance, not one. I remember standing there and doing the national anthem and trying not to cry because everybody was doing the same thing. But when we started, I have no idea how I got through the performance or anything. The reviews were great. Apparently I was a success, but I remember nothing of it. Very strange. But yeah, 9/11. So things happen in this in this job. Things happen. Oh, jeez. Okay. Same thing with COVID. Not really sure, but I mean, right now I just sing what I want. I'm retired. I got off of the, shall we say, the big carnival circuit in about 2010. I did some engagements after that, up until about 2014, 15. And then I kind of got into the teaching bit a bit more, which I really enjoy. Like I say, I enjoy the students. I'm good at it. So I spent several seasons in Europe at conservatories teaching, and I've done some replacement work here, and I like that. I do private lessons, and I have people who come and just say, my daughter's this and this. Would you listen to her? What do you think? So I do that. I do gigs when I want. And that's kind of my future. And the rest of it involves biking, kayaking, playing pickleball, and not thinking about opera. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's what you're supposed to do. No, I've only actually done one production of I've done 7 productions of Salome, 7. I've done 1 with actual veils. And that was an old production, Vienna State Opera, who does old productions. That I was wearing Catherine Malfitano's outfit, which was a body stocking, and I had 7 veils. And the Velcro on 3 of them managed to let go before it was time. So yes, I was kind of molting veils around. So I had to do something with Herod so he didn't see what he wasn't supposed to see until it was time. So yeah, so much for veils. I mean, I'm kind of glad I didn't ever have to really do that, just that once. All the other Salomes, there were no veils. You just did the dance, and you could make it what you could. I mean, you don't want to get a little too energetic because you have to sing the entire ending scene, which is 20 minutes long, after the dance. So if you just overdo it and do a Clara Gamble or something, yeah, when you actually get the head, you're not going to be able to sing to it. But I do have to tell you a funny head story, not mine. Montserrat Caballé. Is that a name that people know? Well, you also know she was very large. Yes. Well, she also managed to do a Salome production. How in the world? I don't know. But everybody tells the story, and I've seen it. I've seen pictures. I mean, I've seen the video. When she got the head on a silver platter, she leaned on it to kiss the head. The whole thing broke. And so, of course, what is she going to do? So of course, she manages to put her whole body on the head so that you don't see that the platter is broken in 2 and the head's rolling, and catch it. And so she had to sing most of her scene like that, just to cover up. But yes, that's like the best head story. That never happened to me. I think I lost the head once, and it rolled to the orchestra pit. I had to go get it. But yeah, they're usually pretty gruesome. Nobody ever makes nice looking Johannahan heads. They always are somewhat bloody and like really, ugh. And yeah, you have to like act like you just love this thing. And most of them stink like latex and fake blood. So that's not very pleasant either. But those are the behind the scenes stories that we have to deal with. And it's like, oh, this is really disgusting, but I just love it. Anyways, yes, Salome is a good one for that because it's all about gore. Everybody's getting murdered or stabbed or throat cut. And yes, and poor Johannahan just loses it completely.
What percent of your career was here versus there? And
I'd say 2/3. Well, hello, Jeff. Is that a Trump call? It's a Trump. It's a Trump call.
The other guy is supposed to get the package to me. Where is it?
I have no idea, but I guessed it was a Trump call, and I was right.
Oh, wait a minute. I think this is it.
All right, Jeff, you had this planned. You had this planned.
And by the way, don't call me. I'll call you.
No, my girl will call your girl.
Read it.
I'm reading it from the top down. I already don't like the second line, but that's okay. Oh, yes, my pardon. Oh my God. Could you believe it? Yes, for her. Erica, Donald J. Trump, president, hereby through his unmatched generosity, pardons Susan B. Anthony. I mean, this is for real. He did this. It was all over Facebook for her crime of voting in the election of 1872 in Rochester, New York. And Thomas Jefferson. Murphy. Oh, God. Okay, this is quite precious. I definitely am going to have to find some wall space for this. But yeah, we couldn't believe it. I mean, Facebook blew up like, pardon? She didn't want a pardon. She wanted to be arrested. But it's like, what? Never mind. We probably have at least one Trump fan here, so I'm not going to name any names. But yeah, we thought that was like one of the more silly things that he has attempted. But too funny. Well, anyways, thank you guys for coming out tonight. And what? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, eventually you have to do this because, if you get successful, most of us start out with like whoever will take you, like you're begging. It's like, please take me. I can sing this. And it's like, yeah, well, I kind of knew and we don't know who you are and we'll see. But, I was a consistent singer. I actually never had a bad performance. I very rarely canceled, maybe 3 times in my whole career. I could sing sick. So that kind of helped build my reputation. So yeah, after a while, I could ditch the agents, and then you have to go to a manager, and then you have to go exclusive. So I had one here, and I had one there, and I'm still in touch with both of them. But they know I don't want to like jump on it again. Not to mention I'm too old. As I say, I can't play ingenues anymore. It's like Social Security's on its way. It's like I can't be 18 anymore. It's okay. I get it. But, bigger voices can last longer. It is true. I mean, I feel sorry for the soubrettes who have to give up a lot earlier because no one's going to hire them either. But yeah, it's not an easy business to go forward in. You really have to stick with it, and you have to do the rules, and you have to be consistent because that's kind of what they look for. They don't want somebody who's going to show up and go, "Oh dear, I can't sing tonight. I have a sore throat. Get a replacement." And they're like, never again. But no, I didn't pull that. So I was good. But I'm from Michigan. We're tough. We would never think of doing that. And I think that stood me in quite good stead to be, a dum-dum from the Midwest who didn't know half the rules, just did their job. And that's kind of how I looked at it. It was my job. Had some fun along the way, of course, but anyways, it was all good. Well, I thank you for this.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Absolutely wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. The next month, we've got Jim Coppinger is going to talk about the humongous fungus among us. Okay. It's in the Upper Peninsula. It's the largest living organism in the entire world. And it's being used. There's ongoing research on this going on right now. So I'm looking forward to seeing you next month. And all I can say right now is say good night, Gracie. Okay.